We're a dynamic duo of local entrepreneurs who don't just work hard, but know how to have a good time too. Along our journey, we've crossed paths with some incredibly cool individuals who've crafted some seriously impressive brand-worthy businesses.
You might recognize their business, but are you ready to get up close and personal with the real architects of their success? Today, we're throwing it into high gear as we sit down with one of these trailblazers. So no more suspense. Let's introduce our guest in the studio today.
So without further ado, Love Local Chicagoland is proud to present Brandworthy with your host, Mike and Aaron.
Hello, and welcome to Brandworthy. Very excited as today we not only have a fantastic guest, but we also have our sponsor in the house. So I am Mike from Brandworthy.
I'm Aaron Bondi. Good to see everybody. And we've got Lisa Gregor from Church Street Brewing Company with us today on Brandworthy. So we're excited to have her in the studio.
Owners in the house today. We're very excited. Lisa, thanks for coming.
Sure.
And as we do every week, we like to have a kind of a toast of the week. And obviously, we're always using Church Street Brewing Company beers because they're one of our favorites and they taste good. But the toast of the week this week is actually going to go out to one of the beers that is being focused on for Autism Awareness Month. It's called Different, Not Broken. And every time someone goes to Church Street, you buy a pack of these, $1 per purchase is going to be going towards an organization to help people with autism. And I think it's a great cause. It's a great beer. Can't lose.
Yeah.
Right. It's a cream ale, so it's really easy drinking and a tasty beer.
So if you haven't gone out there and you're looking for something for the weekend,
Drink for a cause.
Yeah.
Don't drink because, drink for a cause.
Yeah.
And,
hey, I have to have another beer. $1 goes.
right? That's for the kids, right?
Sounds like a great segue. Yeah. Absolutely. Lisa, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being our sponsor on the show. So we got cool swag from you guys and we get some cool brews every once in a while from you guys. But I thought it would be great to kind of talk about the person behind the brewery and the brewing company. So thank you for being on the show.
Sure. Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
So let's start out from the beginning as we normally do, kind of background. Where are you from? Where did you grow up? Those kind of things.
Yeah, I'm from Leland, Illinois. It's right in between DeKalb and Ottawa and 2 towns west of Sandwich. So it has about 650 people. I grew up on a farm. Our house was in town, but the farm was behind the house. And my dad farmed for pretty much for his life until he at some point he became a teacher, so taught in Aurora for a while. But so I lived in Leland, for the first 14 years of my life. And then of all things, I went away to a boarding school in Pennsylvania. That is where I met my husband. So we've known each other since we were 14.
So it's a little bit of fate. Yeah, a little bit of fate there. Yeah.
And
that transition's got to be crazy from a very small town to a boarding school in Pennsylvania. It's got to be a big culture shock.
Yeah, it was. My dad wasn't really doing very well in school, and his mother was from Pennsylvania, so he found himself at that boarding school.
So he thought if it was good for him, it's going to be good for my kids.
Yeah, no, not really. He told me I'd hate every minute of it because he did. But it ended up making
situation.
I think a huge difference in my life and what I was able to do with it. Came back, went to Lake Forest College here in Chicagoland.
Yeah.
And then after I was working for a few years, got an MBA, a Master's in Management, actually, from Northwestern University. So that's my background that way.
Did your husband go to college in Lake Forest also? So did you guys stay together all the time, or
My husband went to Cal Berkeley.
Okay, so you split off, but
didn't really date in high school.
Okay, but you knew each other.
Right. He moved back to the Chicago area and wrote me a letter. I was living in Spain at the time, but there were only 50 of us in our grade level when we were in ninth grade. So we all knew each other fairly well.
Let me just bring up our audience for the younger audience. Like, a letter is when you take a pen out and you use paper and you communicate. It's like a text message.
It's like a physical text message.
Yeah, it's
right?
a physical text message.
You could rip up, right?
Yeah, a one-way physical text message.
And you have to put a stamp on it.
So I'm curious about this. Like, did you guys talk once you left the boarding school?
Oh, yeah.
So you
now I'm going to say
corresponded.
another really old-fashioned thing. We sent Christmas cards
to each other.
To each other, and some other people we went to school with. But yeah, he got a job at UOP in Des Plaines, and knew I was from the Chicago area, so wrote a letter to me in Leland, and I happened to be living in Spain at the time. But when I got back, I did give him a call.
So
yeah,
nice.
So I'm curious. So you started off on a farm. Was the farming, was it like actual like agriculture, or was it animals, or was it a mix?
Oh no. Basically corn and soybeans, which
Okay.
is what most of central Illinois is.
Okay.
And my dad had he had pigs and had cattle at different times.
Okay. So
when
a little
while
bit.
I was
a little
growing
bit
up.
of
So a little
everything.
bit of everything.
Okay. And so how did that then shape you to come back and start a brewery?
A brewery?
You know, like you went away to boarding school, you got your MBA, you're in Spain.
I can.
That
talk
sounds like
about
the qualifications for a
Right,
brewmaster.
Right,
Yeah, like to own a
Majored
brew.
in Spanish and international relations. Perfect. No, the MBA in finance and accounting kind of helped a little bit because I was supposed to do the business end of things.
Okay.
And something that's kind of fun. My ancestors, my grandfather and great grandfather, owned all the Ford dealerships in the middle of Illinois before the Depression. So they
Wow.
like in Leland and Earlville and Ottawa and Marseilles and all those towns down
Yeah.
around there, and they lived in Ottawa. So people kind of kid me that I have a little bit of an entrepreneurial streak. Then your dad farms, so that's pretty much
Is ingrained in you at some point.
at
Yeah.
some point. There's a little bit of that.
Yeah. So how did you end up in Chicago suburbs? How'd you?
Well, I went to Lake Forest College, like I said, and then I went and lived in Spain and taught English and Spanish there for about a year after I got out of school. Ran out of money, came back home, and needed a job. I started working at Northwestern Memorial, helping translate and working with people in their insurance and stuff like that. And initially, started MBA school. Eventually got a job at, it's now Siemens that's in Buffalo Grove. It was in Skokie at the time and was called MCC Powers. But I just, it just came back home, and that's just how things developed then.
And Itasca just seemed like a good place to settle down, right? At the time?
Yeah. We were living in Oak Park and working in Des Plaines and Buffalo Grove, which was a horrible commute.
Yeah.
So we moved first to Des Plaines and then built a house in Itasca. A lot of people were moving out, like to Elk Grove and stuff, that worked with my husband. And we saw Itasca, and I liked the small townness of it. The
It is
small
a very
schools.
beautiful, quaint. Yeah.
It's only about 7,000 people and in the middle of a bunch of really big suburbs. So
Just 10 times bigger than where you grew up.
yeah, I know.
Yeah, for sure. So your husband was a chemical engineer,
Right.
right? So that was his trade. That's what he was
Mm-hmm.
practicing. You were an MBA in finance, kind of entrepreneurial mindset. So you two are sitting down one day and say, we're going to start a brewing company.
Yeah, he was home brewing and having a really good time doing it, and decided that it would be a good retirement plan to start a brewery. And so he would sit at our kids' swim practices, drawing up plans and drawing up the business plan and doing all of that sort of stuff. He did that for several years. And we decided at Christmas time of 2011, we filed for our brewer's permit and had found the building the previous summer. And then
Just
that was
went
it. And
from
then
there.
started buying equipment and just went from there.
When he started brewing, though, were you like, he's like, I want to start a brewery. You're like, oh, okay. Like, did you think it was not like a real?
I didn't think it would ever really happen, but it did.
Because it took him years to come up with the plan, so he had to be
Yeah.
dedicated to
Yeah.
it.
I thought for a second when you said he went to your daughter's swim practices, that's where the congregation came from. He started handing out.
Yeah, handing
All
out
the
samples to
dads.
the kids.
So, but how did the name evolve? How did that come to?
Yeah, that's not a very exciting story, but it's the truth. We started with a building on Church Street in Addison.
Oh.
And so we started working on naming rights and, all that sort of stuff a little bit. And then the people just stopped calling us back. So the lease just suddenly kind of went away. And I'm sure that they didn't, there were no breweries back then. So it was just a really kind of foreign concept. And so then in July, we were riding bikes around Itasca and came across where the brewery is now that was for lease, and talked to them, and that was where we ended up. And Church Street seemed like a good name to us. it had kind of become our baby, I think, by that time.
Yeah.
And so changing the name didn't really occur to us. So our third anniversary, we put a street sign on the parking lot. You've probably noticed it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so that became Church Street, since there is not one in Itasca.
That's great.
And you use the iconic kind of steeple that's in
Right, we
Itasca,
use
so
the
it kind of fits.
Yeah, the church in the middle of town. The steeple of it is in our is on our logo. So yes.
Which is a beautiful steeple. So
Yeah.
I like it. All right, so you become the owner of Church Street Brewing. You guys are trying it out. I'm sure there was not easy in the beginning, right, to get rolling. And now all of a sudden you're successful. You got all these beers. So like, tell us a little bit about the journey in the first couple of years. Was it very hard to get it rolling? Did it kind of just come organically? What were some of the things you learned?
You know, the amazing, when we put it together, if you've seen our brewery, we have a 30-barrel brew house, and we started with 6 30-barrel fermenters. And it was really just getting it started. You know, Joe had a whole plan going for it, and we were only like 2 weeks off the plan he put together. It's working at UOP for all those years. He had
sounds like an engineer's mind,
an
yeah.
engineer's
Right, right.
mind, which was kind of amazing. So we started mid-September brewing, and had a beer ready for the Itasca had a beer festival, little beer festival at the end of the month. And so that we had a beer ready for that was servable and everything else. So we were kind of pleased with that. And again, breweries were kind of new. So
also
and
had
it was
to be,
something new
like,
to do.
Nerve-wracking, you know what I mean? Like your first brew is like, we're going to show it to people. Hopefully they
We're
like
taking this
it.
on the road.
Yeah, we're
you
taking
know,
this
we'll
on
get some
the
real
road.
honesty.
Yeah.
You know?
And but people
Do you
enjoyed
still
it.
have
People
that
started
brew?
coming.
Is that beer still something in your line, or is it just kind of beta?
It's
Okay.
not in our line right now. It's a Scottish ale.
Okay.
And Scottish ales just aren't that popular.
Yeah.
I mean, British, it's weird, but British beers in general are not that
I don't know,
popular.
is it-
Was
Maybe-
was it Joe's favorite though?
It's one of his favorites, yeah.
That's what I was
But he
just
really
saying.
started the brewery to make Helles. He
Oh.
traveled to Germany a lot, and Helles was his favorite liquid. And so the brewery was designed to make Helles and
do
to make
that.
lagers. And and so
And that's still
that was
in production?
That one is our flagship beer. So
Yeah.
that we sell more of that than anything else.
So how many beers in total do you currently carry?
We have about 40 on tap at the brewery, between 35 and 40 at any given time. So I don't know how to answer. We have a lot.
That's a lot.
How
And
to-
oftentimes, are you guys like debating over what the next kind of brew will be, or how does that?
We work
come to
with
fruition?
distributors mainly, and distributors like to know a year ahead of time. So we actually are brewing to a brewing calendar.
Oh, I just thought you just. Oh, hey, we're
So
gonna make this
for the
week.
most
That's got to
part.
make it a lot easier.
Yeah.
But-
Especially, you know.
But we also do collaborations with other breweries, and every once in a while we'll make a small batch just for sale in the tap room. So it keeps everybody thinking and creating, and it makes it a lot more interesting for the brewers than making the same thing over and over and over again.
Sure. So fast forward then, you know, a few years later, you're up, you're running. What are some of the obstacles you ran into as you guys kind of scaled up?
Well, one of them is just, I'd say, really marketing is really, really difficult. Especially now, there are so many breweries. The whole world wants to have something new all the time.
Yeah.
And so keeping ourselves new beers, relevant, and all that is difficult, just like it is for any business. People get to choose how they receive their marketing these days, too. So word of mouth is incredibly important to us, that people talk about us, and
Yeah.
we get the word out about our new beers and stuff like that. But I think is probably, it's everybody's biggest challenge, I think, right now.
Sure.
And I think it's year over year to stay relevant, right? Like you're saying, it's not as easy with more small breweries coming out. But I do like the Church Street logo, the stained glass kind of theme, the names. So it sounds like you got it's very colorful and bright. So it seems like even if you saw them on a shelf, it stands out a little more.
It does some. Yes,
Yeah.
it does.
Plus, you got the congregation, which kind of brings
You
us to
like
our
that.
our
We do
question,
love
our segment, right?
The segment every show we got to do a question from the congregation, and so what we do is we have this bowl out here, and we make
Okay.
someone pick a random question out of it, and that will be you today, Lisa, and then we have to answer the question.
Oh, you do?
All of us.
We all do,
Oh.
yeah, we all do. You don't get out of that. Lisa.
I was looking forward to that.
So,
Well, sometimes we'll answer first. It all just depends.
how many people are in your I guess, what do you call it? I guess congregation, the fan
How many
club.
people?
Are
Probably
part
around
of
50 or so.
it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not huge.
Okay.
But it's a very,
But they're loyal. It's-
Right.
very
Yeah,
loyal,
they're loyal.
group. And we love them. So
All right, great.
I'm
All right,
picking
yep.
this?
Yeah, you're picking the question.
Oh,
Dig
dear.
down in there, grab whatever question you want.
And you
They're
can-
very
I don't like
sophisticated, questions.
If you don't like it, we won't know what you picked. So,
Yeah, you could make up your own, I guess, if you wanted
Okay, so if you could time travel to any period in history, when and where would you go and what would you do?
to. Look at that one.
gosh,
I think I would go back to like Roman times, just to see like the gladiator wars, like in the Roman Colosseums and stuff, just to witness some stuff like that. Had to be a crazy time period. I think it would just be very interesting to see.
gosh, I think I would go back to some sort of like prehistoric time. Like I'd like to see something no one's ever seen.
Like dinosaurs roaming
Yeah.
around, like Jurassic
Why not?
Park. That ended well.
Grab a cooler of beer, grab a cooler, from Church Street and go back in
And go
time.
back and go
Get my
back.
DeLorean,
Time.
go back in time,
And then realize you're scared because these animals
What?
are just vicious.
Well, I mean, what are you doing in the Coliseum? I mean, you're
I
not
would
gonna,
just
you're
be
gonna
a
stick
viewer.
out.
Well, that is probably true.
like,
Because I think back then they're probably all 5 foot, So I'm a 6'3" guy. Yeah, that's probably true. As long as I didn't have to fight in the Roman
I
Coliseum.
thought we were all safe wherever we went. Like
That's true.
stay-
All right, let's assume we're safe. That I would want to see dinosaurs as well. Lisa, if you had to go back in time
I think maybe I might go back to the 20s, the 1920s.
before
that was
Prohibition,
before Prohibition.
Okay.
Yeah, well, that's the 1920s. That's
Yeah.
right before Prohibition, or
The
right
Roaring
when
20s.
the Roaring 20s, just because everything went. Anything would go. So you could, there was so much excitement and so much new stuff going on. So
I like
that's
that.
what I'm
answer,
thinking.
too.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's better than dinosaurs.
I don't know. Yeah. I had to
I don't
think
know
of
if I would
something.
like dinosaurs.
Whatever. I bet you'd go to Jurassic Park if there was one.
I probably would actually, knowing me, but I would be scared because of the movies. The movies ruin it. See.
Yes.
All right, so let's get to Church Street Brewing Company. Let's talk about specifically who you guys are. We already know the name. You guys do a lot. Where are you located at right now? So you're not on Church Street, but you're on Industrial.
Industrial Drive.
Industrial Drive in Itasca.
Itasca. And we have a second restaurant now called Barley House that is over by the Westin in Hamilton Lakes, also in
Nice.
Itasca.
And that's recently opened, right?
It opened in November.
Opened in November,
Yep.
and it's a small, like 50-person restaurant.
Right.
Okay,
And we have
nice.
12 beers on tap there, and we also have cocktails and wine. It's a brew pub. We do have a fermenter there that we periodically make beer. Right now, there's a dark Mexican lager in the fermenter, so you can drink it right from the tank.
That sounds good. Yeah.
I like that.
I like that for sure. When we go to Church Street Brewing, and we love it, there's a lot of cool events and things happening there all the time. And so do we want to talk a little bit about, if you're coming, you can see music, there's all these other things going on. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, on Monday night we have trivia at Church Street. Tuesday night we have trivia at Barley House, so you can kind of choose what you want to eat.
I know
kind of
Steve
what you
Long
want.
running
Steve Long is running both.
both.
And
all
then
right.
he also does music bingo on Wednesday night at Church Street.
So you're telling me that I could have Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday with Steve Long and
Sometimes
some
he has
beers.
other people.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it could be Steve Long all the time.
I have
Nice.
a question. Is Barley House, you guys serving food there?
We are.
So is that a family type of spot where you could bring kids?
Yeah,
or-
you can bring kids to both places.
Perfect. All right.
Kids are welcome at Church Street. Breweries are a nice place that everybody can come and have fun.
But the menu is different at both.
Yes.
So that's even better. So you could go to trivia on Monday and trivia on Tuesday and not have to eat the same thing. You
Right.
could eat.
Yeah,
You
we
might
have
hear
more
the
like.
same questions.
That's true. Well, you might know the answers by then.
No,
right?
he doesn't ask
Be
the same
smarter on
questions
Tuesday.
either.
Oh, okay.
But we could hit
So-
up Steve and find out what he's going to ask. I'll still get him wrong. I'm sure.
Yeah, we have burgers and tots and fries and sandwiches, chicken sandwiches, things, and salads and stuff at Barley House.
Okay.
And Church Street has pizzas and sandwiches.
Really good pizzas, actually. I've had that. That's usually my go-to. When
And
I
then
go there.
different salads to go with them. So we've got a potato salad, a macaroni, a pasta salad, and stuff at Church Street. So Church Street does not have a fryer. That's basically the difference.
Okay.
And
It's healthier.
the food is different.
It's healthier than that. You have 30 so beers, we get that, but I'm always enamored by the names and how they're just kind of creative and unique. So like, how do you guys come up with that? Is that just one person? Are you creating them? Is everyone arguing over them?
It's more everybody arguing over them, or not that much, but we have a couple of people that can come up with lists and lists and lists of names, and then we just kind of narrow it down to 3 or 4 and then make a final decision. Sometimes that's me, sometimes that's somebody else. They say, this
Yeah.
is how it's got to be.
You ever find like a name of a beer and you're like, oh, we gotta make that beer. We're gonna have to come up with a.
Yeah, we've done that a couple of times.
Okay.
Yeah.
The name just fits so well.
Right.
that
You gotta
have to
find a
go
beer
to-
for
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
So-
we're still waiting for our brand-worthy beer. that would be an awesome brew that we would come out with. All right, so we talked before we got on the show a little bit about the making of it, and I understand that that's not your specialty, but I learned a little bit about like head retention. That's a thing in beers, and everyone talks about the head of a beer. So could you talk a little bit about that? I think it's
About
interesting.
making beer?
Yeah,
In
making
general?
beer that also head retention specifically, because it's just for commercials. You assume that they want a good pour, but it actually has a purpose.
Yeah, he was asking me about making beer and coming up with recipes, and everybody has their own, every brewer has their own special recipes. You can get a recipe for a Pilsner basically online if you want, but people like, if they do something like that, you make your own little tweaks. You use a little bit more of this malt than that malt. Malt can vary the color of it, or you use a different type of yeast, or you use a different hop bill, because all the hops taste and smell very, very differently. So you can generally, there are guidelines for different styles of beer, because Pils is a certain style, but then you can kind of mess around with it a little bit and make it what you want. We were talking about head retention. He said, so what do you, that's one of the things that you try to work with. Head retention in the Helles, for example, is just such a light lager that it's kind of hard for it to have enough
Foam, I guess, as you pour it, right?
enough malt that it actually it will have it when you pour it, but you like to have it stay for a little bit because it helps with the presentation of the glass. And so you put different malts in and to affect the head retention, and they're always, since they're real products, they're always changing a little bit. So you use you use your regular base malt, and then you adjust the other malts that will affect the head retention. So sometimes you need a little more, sometimes you need a little less, and so that's a constantly changing equation for the brewer.
So aesthetically, it looks good, but it also helps with the aroma of the beer.
I've
Yeah.
learned that there's like a right and a wrong way to pour a beer recently.
Oh, I could show you
thought-
the wrong way 99% of the time.
Well,
I'm the worst
apparently we've been
bartender.
Doing
for
it
sure.
wrong in college all the way around.
Well, first of all, I would assume in college you don't really care.
Were you just shooting them in college?
You're just basically poking a hole in the can and shotgunning them. What are you talking
Well,
about?
if you pour it out of a can versus a keg versus, a tap, it's just there's a different way. And some beers have to be poured different, right? I mean, you have you got nitros, you got your stouts, and you got other beers that
Yeah, the
require a
nitros are
little
fun.
bit-
You just pour it right in and then watch it cascade as it floats up the glass. But the
Right.
glass ends up being full at the end, which is really pretty fun.
I learned if you pour it out of a can, you have to pour the last little bit a certain way, in either to get the right amount of head on the beer or to get the aroma that you're talking about.
Yep.
I'm too excited to
I've been
get to the
studying
drinking
up.
part to care about the pouring part. Just get,
Well, it changes the way it tastes.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. All right, so we talked about a little bit about the people, and I know the people that you have working for you are integral in the product, right? So we've met a lot of them as we go there. But what is kind of the philosophy of your people management? Like you're trying to keep the same people, you're trying to retain them, you're trying to work through things. How hard is that in this type of environment? And, what is your key to keeping them around? Because it seems like they stay.
We do have people that stay for a long time. I try to just keep them involved. I don't know how else to put it. Make sure that they're part of the decisions that we're making and that they're being heard, I guess. That's the best way I can put it, or most succinct way I can put it.
Which sounds simple, but a lot of companies don't do that.
Right.
So, you should be very proud that the faces of the company they're staying and they're working.
And we also, our servers stay. We try to be good to them as well. And if they need time off, give them time off. Let them, within
reason.
Within reason. But we just try to treat them basically like we'd like to be treated, I think, is how you would
Yeah, the golden
summarize
rule
it.
would always apply. I think a lot of businesses say that they do that, but it shows through the evidence of when we talk to anybody.
Yeah, in our brew house, our head brewer, Sean, is our newest addition, and I think he came in 2021. But Michael's been there since 2018, I believe. Andrew since 2014.
That's amazing.
And Chuck also, 2013. So that's our brew house crew. And, Jace has been around now for over 5 years.
And if you go into Church Street, there's no way you don't meet Jace or hear him at least.
Right.
And Amanda, who does our social media, has been with us for 4 years or so, too. So, yes, we do tend to keep people for a long time.
It's a great value.
So it's nice.
What would you say is the thing that the biggest thing that you've learned? And I would break that into two things. One from the first brew in the garage to starting the business, and then from starting the business to now. What are the two biggest things that you think you've learned over those times?
That's a hard question. Initially, when we first started it, remember, I thought it was nice to be an Indian. I was just doing what I was, whatever needed to be done to get the thing started up and running. And so I found out lots of cool things about air compressors, and things like that I never thought I would have to know.
Never thought you'd care about. Yeah.
Trying to, so that was, it was nice to be, just kind of following along. But since that, it's just, I don't, just when you think things are under control, something new happens. I think that is, and just to always be ready for something new. When you get to be my age, that gets more and more challenging to take on. I don't know. Do you guys like getting new phones now? And trying to get them
I hate it. So if you're telling me it gets worse as I get older, I'm like, I'm doomed because I hate it now.
I'm just, always learning something new.
Yeah.
I think that's, and how, I know that's pretty exciting to every day wake up knowing that by the time of day is you're going to have come across something you've never even thought of before.
And competition is fierce in this market. So the fact that you guys have a strong brand, strong following,
right,
and people recognize it means you're doing something right. So you're always getting up to keep that going.
But at the same time, breweries are really collaborative with each other.
Yeah.
We have a email list, and people are always putting on it, hey, I'm missing a bag of flaked wheat for today. Does anybody have one? And then we're reaching out and trading ingredients and stuff just to
see, I wouldn't be good because I'd be like, no, screw you, I'm keeping my flaked wheat.
That's not how we are at all.
How big of a geography does that span? Is that Chicagoland?
It's Illinois, the Illinois brewers.
Okay.
Yeah, so
So like from Goose Island down to the guy in his garage.
Yep, and Goose Island has been a super big help
I bet.
over the years with technical knowledge and stuff like that for everybody.
I gotta believe if it's good for one, it's good for all, right?
Yep.
I mean, everybody up in their game and making.
Yeah, but
the
you'd
best
assume
product.
that they wouldn't want. Like you'd assume competitor. Like Nike and Adidas aren't sharing. Products and knowledge.
But beer's
so
different.
It's great that they are.
Every single brewery's beers taste totally different.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
I think
idea.
you've noticed that, so that we're all in this together. So it's all kind of a, it's us versus Miller and Bud, more or less.
Yeah,
Down the big but it seems to be working because if anyone reads the local, like the big couple, 2 or 3, they're struggling a little bit.
But if you think about it too, I mean, from a food or beverage thing, there's got to have some sort of a local network. It's hard to kind of outsource your food and say, oh yeah, the food's imported from, where. So you kind of have to have that community base to make your products scale up and be better. So why not work together? That's great.
Yeah.
Glad to hear that.
And we do collaboration beers. We work a lot with art history, and we've worked with Pollyanna, just Roaring Table up in Lake Zurich.
Yep.
I'm drawing blanks on, but we make about once a quarter we make a beer with another brewery.
And
Brother Chimp out in North Aurora.
How does that just like, hey, you're talking, you're like, hey, we were thinking about doing that too. Let's just get together.
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like
People
just
talk,
organically.
and they just kind of happen, and that's a lot of fun for everybody. So sometimes we go to that brewery, sometimes they come to us, and then we make a beer together that day.
So we talk about brewers being a community. It's a good transition or segue into Church Street and how they're helping the community out with many different things. So I know we did talk about at the beginning of the show, different Not Broken with the autism donation. But you guys are doing so many other things in the community that are helpful. Do you want to talk or highlight about a couple of those?
Yeah, well, one of the things we have coming up really soon is Frühlingsfest, and it's a fundraiser for the local Boy Scout Council. So that's coming up on April 27th. And it's a smaller, like 10 brewery beer festival,
Nice.
10 or 12 breweries. We've got a meadery, I think, too. All the proceeds, you actually get the tickets from the Boy Scouts, but they're using our space and stuff to put on the festival. So there'll be a band and everything for that.
Which is great, and the money proceeds will help go to them.
The proceeds go to them. Yep.
I've done Toys for Tots. I know I've dropped off
Yes.
toys over there.
Yeah, we do Toys for Tots at Christmas time. We have collections for the food pantry periodically in Itasca. And then we get a lot of requests for donations for different fundraisers for different charities around.
Yeah.
And so we usually contribute to those things as well.
Nice. I think that's really good that not only are you a business, which obviously is in the interest of making money, but also you're giving back to the community in which comes and uses your facility and drinks your beer. So
Yep.
I think it's a good cyclical
and we do
effect.
different fundraisers where, just the traditional, you get 10% back. If you bring a bunch of people in, that day's proceeds 10% back. We do some of those as well.
You hear that? We need to get some, we need to get some
Yeah,
crews over there.
right. We could raise
The
some
other part I
funds.
love I'm wearing the swag and the merchandise here, but I know, you guys do make good quality clothes and merchandise. I know you have like Cubs and socks type stuff going on right now. Do you want to talk a little bit about the merchandise and how they can get it?
Yeah, you can buy it on our website, or you can just come into the brewery and get it. I mean, basically is how you can get it. But for the spring, we have Cubs socks and Church Street colored baseball shirts.
Oh.
And my favorite is the Church Street shirt. Sorry. But
No need to apologize.
But I like what it says on the back. It says, "Tell your mom you went to church." And
There you
that's
go.
that's one of my favorite shirts that we do.
See, I need to start doing that. Every Sunday I could come out to Church Street and be like, did my service today.
Yeah, no kidding.
All right, so we always kind of want to know, how do people interact with you? How do they get a hold of you? We know there's 2 restaurants, so do you want to kind of name where the 2, not restaurants, the brewery and the restaurant, you want to tell us where those are?
Well, it's a brewery and a brew pub. So we do make beer at both locations. But the brewery's in Itasca on Industrial Drive, 1480 Industrial Drive. Don't worry, you're not lost. It's at the end of a dead-end street.
And it's a large place, so like you'll have plenty of room for you to sit. It's a cool
Yep.
environment.
Yep, and lots of parking. It doesn't look that way at first, but there are many places, including the street, you can park. The Barley House is located right near the Westin in Hamilton Lakes, which is just north of 390, also in Itasca.
Yep.
So, yes.
Nice. And
they
if
are.
someone's trying to get a hold of your beer, because there's many of them and they're all over the place, where can they find, the beer at, basically?
Yeah, we do have a beer finder on our website, and we always have the best selection at Church Street, but you can also get us at Binny's, at Jewel, and at Walmart's. and at Woodman's.
Yeah,
So,
and we talked right before we went on, but I was shocked to find out like you can get it in Missouri, some parts of Florida, Nebraska, Kansas, Wisconsin. I mean, you guys are the congregation is spreading on out to other states. So if you haven't tried it, I highly encourage people to get out there and try it. I do think the best way is to go to the brewery, just because the environment. I always am an environment kind of person, so I think it makes it even nicer. But
Well, plus you're sitting with the bartender, and they can kind of they can guide you through the list. 40 beers, and you want to try something.
and now I can talk about head retention, which I did not know before.
Poor quality.
Poor quality, for sure. Well, Lisa, thank you very much for being on the show. We absolutely loved having you on. We also love that you're sponsoring Brandworthy, which is another way for small businesses and to get their stories out for the people who do great things. So really appreciate it, and we'll be sure to drink up as much as we can every time we come in. So
sounds good.
Thanks for being here.
Oh, you're welcome. It was fun to be here.
For Mike and Aaron, thanks for listening to Brandworthy, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Wayne.